Hey designers! In this video, we are going to create this 3D camera movement in After Effects. We will combine two 3D scenes and make a smooth transition between them. First, I'm going to create a new composition with the size 1920 by 1080. Then I'll press OK. Let's import the assets. I'll be providing you these assets in the description below. Oh my goodness, you guys, please subscribe to my channel. I have noticed that most of the people who watch my videos haven't subscribed yet. It would really mean a lot if you could just support me by clicking that subscribe button. Alright, let's move on. These are the assets we'll be using. This is picture 1, and with picture 1, we are going to use background 1, BG1. Then with picture 2, we are going to use background 2, BG2. Let's import all of these into After Effects. First, we are only going to work with background 1 and image 1. So just drag and drop these two into the composition. Adjust the sizes if needed. Okay, I think this image doesn't really match the background perfectly, so we need to change its colors a bit to make it blend better. To do that, select the PNG image. Go to Effects and Presets and search for Lumetri Color. Apply the Lumetri Color effect onto the image. Then go to Basic Correction. Here, we'll increase the temperature and decrease the tint. Alright, now it's looking much better. Perfect. Once the colors are adjusted, we can move forward with the animation. First, let's create a new camera layer. These are the settings for the camera layer. You can just copy them. Press OK. Let's create a new null object. And you know why we make a null object, right? Because whenever I adjust the camera, I always create a camera layer and then a null layer. I parent the camera to the null object, because when we do that, we get more control and more options for animation. So let's parent the camera to the null object. Just take the pick whip from the camera and drag it onto the null object. Finally, let's make all the layers 3D. Okay, let's move this null 1 layer above the PNG and BG1 layers. Also, let's rename it to one camera, so it's easier to stay organized. Change the view from one view to two views. In my setup, the right side view is set to active camera, as you can see here, and the left side is set to custom view 1. You can adjust the camera positioning just for visual purposes by selecting the Orbit Around Cursor tool and moving around like this. Don't worry, it's not going to change anything in the active camera view. This is just to help you understand better how everything is placed and how the camera is moving. Now first, select BG1. Press P on your keyboard to bring up position. Move it back along the Z-axis. Move it really far back. Then press S for scale and scale it up big. After that, if you feel like it needs to go even more back, press P again and push it further in Z position. Also, scale it up again with S, so that it fully covers the composition and there are no white spaces left. Next, select the PNG layer. Adjust its position if you think it needs it. If you feel like it should be scaled up or down a little, press S to adjust the scale. Basically, tweak it however you think looks best. Once you've adjusted the positions of both PNG1 and BG1, select the camera layer. Press P for position. Click on the stopwatch next to position to create a keyframe. Move the timeline indicator a few frames forward. Here, bring the camera closer by adjusting the Z position. Also adjust the Y position so the camera doesn't go too high and touch the top of the frame. Just adjust the Y and Z positions until you like how it looks. Let's see. Okay, it's already giving a really nice 3D feel. Select both of the keyframes you created and press F9 to easy ease them. Go into the graph editor. If your graph doesn't look like mine, just right-click inside the graph and select Edit Speed Graph. Now, grab the first keyframe's handle and make a nice curve like this. Do the same with the second keyframe. Make it nice and smooth. I'm going to change the resolution to third quality so that everything plays back smoother and there's less lagging and glitches. Okay, perfect. Now it's time to bring in the second set of images. Drop the second PNG and the second background onto the timeline. Next, select the one camera layer, which is the null layer we created earlier. Press Ctrl+D on your keyboard to duplicate it. Rename the duplicated layer to 2 camera so it's clear which one is which. Select one camera and parent it to 2 camera by dragging the Pick Whip tool. This way, whatever changes we make to 2 camera will automatically affect the first camera too. Move the 2 camera layer above the timeline. Press P to open position settings for one camera. Now, very important, delete only the second keyframe, not the first one. We need that first keyframe to stay. Move the second PNG, the second background, and the 2 camera layer further down the timeline. Maybe move them around 3 to 4 seconds forward. The idea is that we don't want them to appear instantly. We want them to come in after a little gap. Preview the animation once to see when the first close-up animation finishes. We want the second camera animation to start exactly when the close-up of the first scene ends. No awkward gaps in between. Make it a smooth transition. Don't forget to make both the second PNG and the second BG3D layers as well. Move the timeline indicator a few frames forward again. First, we're going to adjust the second background. We want to move it far behind the first background. Press P to open its position. Move the Z position all the way backward. Really push it back deep. Then press S to bring up scale and scale it up big again, so it covers the whole composition without showing any white areas. If you feel like it still needs to move back a bit more, just press P again and push the Z position even further back. Select the second PNG layer. Scale it down a bit and adjust its position. Move it towards the right side. So now, make sure to leave a little gap from the first frame. Move the timeline indicator a few frames forward. First of all, we're going to adjust the X position and the Z position. The idea is that the first PNG will slide to the left side, revealing the second PNG behind it. So, start by adjusting the Z position. Bring it a little closer. Then, change the X position to move the first PNG towards the left side, so the second PNG can start appearing from behind. Tweak the Z position again if needed, just to push it slightly away from the camera, because it might be a bit too close otherwise. At this point, we're also going to adjust the position and scale of the second PNG, so that it looks more balanced and better placed in the scene. Take a second to fine-tune everything until you're happy with how both images sit in the frame. Alright, perfect. Select the BG1 layer and press T on the keyboard to open the opacity settings. We're going to add an opacity animation to it because when the second PNG comes into the frame, we want the first background to fade away and reveal the second background behind it. So, at the point where the second PNG starts appearing, click on the stopwatch next to opacity to create a keyframe. Then, move the timeline indicator a few frames forward and set the opacity value to 0. This way, BG2 will start getting revealed as BG1 fades out. Preview the animation to check the timing. If the transition doesn't feel right, or if it looks off, don't worry, we'll adjust it. Once you preview it, you'll notice that after the camera finishes the close-up movement, the image becomes stationary for a moment. We don't want that gap. So at this point, select the 2cam, PNG2, and BG2 layers, and move them a little towards the left side on the timeline so that they start appearing a bit sooner. Keep fine-tuning until the transition looks smooth without any awkward pause. Let's adjust the second opacity keyframe as well. When you're making changes to the positioning of the layers on top, You also need to adjust the opacity keyframes of BG1 because we want the background transition to feel nice and smooth. Once you've adjusted their timing, go back and fine-tune the opacity keyframes too. We want everything to blend together smoothly without any sharp cuts. Go into the graph editor and adjust the graph to create a nice curve. Make the curve smooth and natural, just like we did with the camera keyframes earlier. Go back to the main composition and adjust the opacity keyframes so that the transition happens a little faster. Select the keyframes, press F9 to easy ease them for a smoother motion. Alright, to make it even smoother, we're going to adjust the opacity keyframes a little more. Select the BG2 layer and move it slightly to the left, so that it appears a bit sooner and blends in better with the scene. Here, select the 2 cam layer and press Shift plus R to bring up the rotation settings. Click on the stopwatch next to both Y rotation and Z rotation. Move the bar indicator to the very first frame of this 2 cam layer and add blank keyframes for the Y and Z rotations. Move the bar indicator to the second keyframe, and here slightly change the Y rotation to add a bit of a perspective effect. Also, adjust the Z rotation slightly to give a nice tilt to the scene. After setting the rotations, adjust the position of the 2 PNG so that it sits properly according to the new camera angle. Okay, now I think it's feeling a bit too slow. So let's move the second keyframes a little closer to the first ones. Also, move the 2 PNG and 2 background layers slightly to the left so that they appear more instantly without any noticeable delay. Once you've done that, remember, you'll also need to adjust the opacity keyframes for a smoother transition. Select all the 2 cam keyframes, press F9 to easy ease them, and then head into the graph editor. Inside the graph editor, adjust the curve to make the motion feel even smoother. Adjust it just like this. Okay, now select this BG1 layer, go to Effects and Presets, and search for Motion Tile. Apply the Motion Tile effect to this background layer. Click on the option called Mirror Edges, and then increase both the output width and output height so that no white spaces appear at any point during the transition. We are going to apply the same Motion Tile effect to BG2 as well, just like before. Alright, let's preview the animation to see how it's looking. Change the view from 2 views back to 1 view. Select the BG1 layer again and adjust the opacity keyframes if needed, just to make the transition even smoother. Close all the properties of these layers. It's time to add the text. Take the text tool and write the text here. This will be the text for the first background, the text for the first scene. After typing your text, choose a font of your choice and adjust the size of it so it fits well. Once you're happy with it, make this text layer 3D. Then, move this text layer below the one camera layer in the timeline, so it's grouped properly with the first scene layers. Change the view from one view to two views so it's easier to position the text in 3D space. Select the text layer, press P for position, and move it backward by changing the Z position so it sits nicely behind the one PNG layer. Adjust the position and scale of this text layer so that it fits nicely in the scene. Okay, at this point, we want this text to have a fade-in and fade-out animation using opacity. So, select this text layer, press T to open the opacity property. Click on the stopwatch next to opacity to create a keyframe. Move the bar indicator a few frames forward and add another blank keyframe here. Move back to the first keyframe and set the opacity to 0. Let's preview the animation to see how it looks. If it feels too sudden or sharp, adjust the keyframes of opacity to make the fade-in smoother. Drag them a little apart if needed, so the transition feels more natural and pleasing. Once the fade-in animation of opacity is done, move the bar indicator a few frames forward and add a blank keyframe here. Then, move the bar indicator a few frames forward again, and at this point, set the opacity to 0 because the text will now fade out. Select the first two keyframes, press F9 to easy ease them. Go to the graph editor and adjust the graph as shown. Next, select the second two keyframes, press F9 to easy ease them as well, and adjust them in the graph editor too. After that, adjust the placement of the opacity keyframes carefully so that everything flows smoothly. Take your time with these adjustments because it will make the opacity effect look much nicer. Keep adjusting the keyframes until it looks good. Once you're happy with the result, let's move forward. Okay, I think this is much better. Duplicate this text layer by selecting it and pressing Ctrl D on the keyboard. Move this duplicated text layer above the original one, because this will be a part of the second scene. At this point, hide the first text layer so that we can clearly work on the second one. Replace the text of this duplicated layer. Also, move the bar indicator a few frames forward and position this new text layer to start at that point. This way, the second text will appear later on in sync with the second scene. We are going to copy the position of this second PNG and paste it onto the text layer. So, first select the 2 PNG layer, press P, select this position by clicking on it, and press Ctrl C to copy the position values. Next, select the text layer, press P to reveal its position, and then press Ctrl V to paste the copied position keyframes here. You will notice that the text becomes a very close-up view, but we do not want that. First of all, let's scale it down so that it fits properly into the scene. Also, let's manually adjust the position of it as well. Move it slightly upwards to place it nicely. At this point, we can also see that the text is too tilted, which we do not want. So let's adjust the tilt to make the text a bit straighter. Now, press U on the keyboard to reveal all the keyframes of this text layer. Let's adjust the opacity keyframes as well. We do not want this text to fade out like the first one, so delete the second two opacity keyframes. We just want it to appear but not disappear yet. Now, adjust the opacity keyframes for a smoother entrance. Finally, we need to make this text layer move back behind the 2 PNG layer. So adjust the Z position of it, move it slightly backwards so it sits properly behind the image. Also, make any small scale adjustments needed to make the text size look good with the overall scene. Preview the animation to see if everything looks fine, and also check if the placement of the text looks correct. Do not forget to make the first text layer visible again. Turn on its visibility if it was hidden. At this point, you might notice that the second opacity animation is way too slow. So, let's adjust it a bit to make it quicker and smoother. Also, it seems that the first text is looking too wide for these scenes. So, select the first text layer, and let's adjust its position to fit better into the frame. After adjusting the position, press T for opacity. We do not want the opacity to reach a full 100% because it looks a bit too strong for the scene. So, at the points where the opacity hits 100%, lower it down to around 60% to 70% instead. It will blend more naturally with the background this way. Also, do the same thing for the second text layer. Lower its opacity around 70% as well, so that it matches and doesn't overpower the scene. Now, preview the animation again to check. Perfect. Now everything looks much better and smoother. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please like it, comment on it, and do not forget to subscribe to Ace Designs for more content like this.